The morning I visited my grandfather, the world felt strangely quiet, wrapped in a soft blanket of fog that clung to the fields around his old wooden house. I hadn't seen him properly in months. Life had kept pulling me in different directions, and the emotional tension at home never really allowed peace to settle. Still, the moment I stepped onto his porch, the familiar scent of pine and old books made something inside me loosen. Grandpa sat in his favorite rocking chair, the one that creaked with every backward push. His eyes lit up when he saw me. Despite the wrinkles etched deep across his face, there was always warmth in his expression, warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. "Adelbeda," he called out, "come sit with me." I sat beside him, expecting the usual gentle questions about work, my health, or whether I was eating properly. But instead, he asked something that stopped my heart mid-beat. "Did you get the email about your trust fund?" For a moment, everything froze. The birds, the wind, even my thoughts stalled as if trying to catch up with his words. "What email?" I managed to ask, my voice slower than my racing pulse. "Your trust fund," he repeated, confused. "The lawyer emailed all the documents. Your mother said she would remind you. Didn't you get it?" I shook my head, feeling a strange tightness crawl across my chest. "No, Grandpa. No one told me anything." A shadow of disappointment passed through his eyes, disappointment not at me, but at something he had already begun to suspect. "That's strange," he murmured. "It was sent months ago. Everything was finalized after your grandmother's wishes." My breath hitched. "Months?" He reached into his sweater pocket and pulled out a folded sheet. The paper was old at the edges, softened from being handled too many times. He placed it in my hand. "This is the copy," he said. "I kept it in case you lost the original email." When I unfolded it, my name stared back at me in bold letters. Below it, legal terms, financial statements, and my grandmother's signature, her handwriting that I hadn't seen since she passed, spilled across the page. A trust fund for me, for my future, for a life she wanted me to have. My throat tightened painfully. Not because of the money, but because not a single person in my house had mentioned it, not one word. Not even a hint. Grandpa watched me quietly. "You were supposed to know," he said softly. As his words settled into the cold morning air, a realization crept over me like a slow, icy wave. Someone had made sure I never received that email. Someone in my own home, and for the first time an unsettling question whispered through my mind. What else had been hidden from me? The ride home, after visiting Grandpa, felt longer than usual. Every passing streetlight flickered with the same unanswered questions circling in my mind. How could an entire email, an entire future, be hidden from me? By the time I reached home, my heartbeat felt like a quiet drum of suspicion. The house was oddly silent, except for the faint clatter coming from the kitchen. When I walked in, I saw my mother and uncle standing close, whispering intensely about something. Their conversation stopped instantly the moment they saw me, like a flame snuffed out by cold air. My mother forced a smile. "You're home early," she said, too casually. "I went to see Grandpa," I replied, watching their faces closely. A flicker, a tension, a shared glance between the two that said more than any words could. "Oh, how is he?" my uncle asked, his voice rigid. "He's fine," I said. "He asked me something interesting." Both of them froze. What did he ask you?" my mother whispered. I shrugged. Nothing big. But inside, a storm was building. I ate quietly that night, listening to their shallow attempts at small talk. The atmosphere felt wrong, like the walls themselves were hiding conversations I wasn't meant to hear. When I finally went to my room, I opened my laptop again. Something inside me refused to rest until I saw the truth with my own eyes. I checked my email inbox one more time. Nothing. Then I opened the trash folder. Still nothing. I was about to give up when something told me to check the settings. And there it was, a filter rule. A small, invisible piece of digital sabotage. All emails from Grandpa's lawyer. Mark as read right arrow, delete automatically. My breath left my body in a shaky rush. Someone had created this filter. Someone who had access to my laptop. Someone who didn't want me to know. Anger, betrayal, and disbelief tangled inside me until my hands trembled. I clicked on the filter to see when it had been created. The date hit me like a punch, 3 months ago. Exactly when Grandpa said the email was sent, I felt sick. The next day, I went to see my grandmother's closest friend, Auntie Samina. She opened the door with a warm smile, but her expression shifted when she saw my face. "What's wrong, Beta?" I told her everything, every detail, every suspicion. She listened in silence, and when I finished, she let out a long, heavy sigh. "I feared this would happen," she said quietly. "Your grandmother always worried your mother and uncle would try to take what was meant for you, and my heart sank. She left strict instructions that the trust was yours alone." She continued, "No one else. And recently I heard someone tried to access it." My blood ran cold. Someone had tried to steal it, someone from my own family, and suddenly, the house I grew up in didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a place full of shadows that were hiding what belonged to me. 2 days later, I walked into the law office with a determination I hadn't felt in years. The familiar scent of polished wood and leather furniture usually comforted me, but today it felt cold, sterile, almost accusing. The lawyer looked up from his desk, eyebrows raised in surprise. "Adele, this is unexpected," he said cautiously. "I didn't bother with pleasantries. Why didn't I get the trust fund email?" My voice was steady, but inside, it was sharp and trembling. He shifted uncomfortably in his chair. I don't know what you mean," he replied too slowly. His hesitation told me all I needed to know. "I have the copy," I said, slamming Grandpa's printed email onto his desk. "The one Grandpa gave me. You sent this months ago. Why didn't I receive it?" He swallowed, eyes darting to the floor. "Your mother and your uncle, they asked me to send correspondence only to them," he admitted quietly. "They said you were not ready, that you couldn't handle the responsibility yet." "Not ready," I echoed, disbelief and fury mixing into a bitter taste. "You let them lie. You let them steal my future." My hands shook as I pointed at the paper. "This is my life they were trying to take, and you—" I had no choice. He interrupted. "They threatened to sue me personally if I didn't comply." I stepped back, trying to catch my breath. Rage and hurt collided inside me, leaving me breathless. Betrayal had many forms, but this was a knife twisting in the heart. When Grandpa found out, he called a family meeting immediately. The atmosphere in the house that day was electric, tense, a storm waiting to break. My mother and uncle sat across from us, guilt and defensiveness etched on their faces. "You attempted to steal from your own blood," Grandpa said, voice low but lethal, every word cutting like steel. "From your grandson, from this family. Do you understand the gravity of your actions?" Tears streamed down my mother's face, and my uncle stammered excuses, but Grandpa's gaze never wavered. He wanted the truth, and nothing less. Finally, my mother confessed, her voice breaking. "I was scared he would leave us, that he would forget us once he had the money. I didn't want him to abandon his family." I felt my chest tighten. "Forget us. You forgot me. You didn't trust me. You didn't protect me." I whispered, my voice raw and trembling. The house seemed to shrink, the air thick with unspoken resentments and years of unhealed wounds. My uncle admitted his part too, that he only wanted a small portion to cover his debts. But a small portion of my future was still theft, and that fact weighed heavier than any amount of money. Grandpa's eyes blazed with fury. "Your greed, your fear, your lies, they've cost you any claim. The trust fund belongs solely to Adele. You both have lost that right." For the first time, I felt a strange mixture of grief and power. They had betrayed me, yes, but now the truth was finally out, and the scales were beginning to tip in my favor. The morning after the confrontation, Grandpa and I drove to the bank together. The air was crisp, carrying a sense of inevitability. I felt a strange mixture of anger, sadness, and determination swirling inside me. Today, things would finally change. Today, I would reclaim what was rightfully mine. Inside the bank, the manager greeted us politely, but noticed the tension immediately. Grandpa placed his hand firmly on my shoulder and introduced me as the rightful heir. The lawyer who had accompanied us spoke softly, detailing the events and the previous attempts by my mother and uncle to hide the trust fund. Every word I heard felt like a release of months of pent-up frustration, Grandpa looked at me, his eyes firm yet warm. "Today your grandmother's wish will finally be fulfilled," he said. Then, in front of witnesses, the lawyer and bank manager, he transferred the entire trust fund into my account. Every last dollar. My mother and uncle, who had tried to manipulate the system, were legally barred from touching a cent. For a moment, I felt an overwhelming sense of vindication. The betrayal of the past months, years even, had been met with justice. But more than the money, it was the freedom I felt, the emotional emancipation from those who had tried to clip my wings. After the transfer, Grandpa and I returned home. That afternoon, he sat me down in his study and began rewriting his will. He removed my mother and uncle entirely, ensuring that they could never interfere with my inheritance again. Their pleas and protests fell on deaf ears. The house, once filled with tension and whispered deceit, now felt like a place where truth had been restored. Later, we returned to the porch, the same place where this journey had begun. Grandpa handed me a cup of tea and settled into his rocking chair. His hand rested over mine, his grip firm and steady. "Your grandmother wanted you to soar, Adele," he said softly. "Now no one can stop you." I looked out across the fields, the horizon stretching endlessly before me. For the first time in my life, I felt truly free, unboarded, unchained. My future was no longer dictated by fear, manipulation, or betrayal. It was mine to shape, mine to protect. Tears welled up, but they were no longer only tears of hurt. They were tears of triumph, of reclamation, of finally having the life my grandmother had wanted for me. I realized that sweet revenge was not about hurting others. It was about reclaiming your power, your dignity, and your future. As the sun dipped low, casting a golden glow across the porch, Grandpa smiled. "Build your life, Beta. Let it be everything you dreamed of. They can never take this from you." And in that moment, surrounded by the quiet strength of my grandfather and the memory of my grandmother's love, I felt a deep, lasting peace. The past could no longer hold me captive. The future was mine, bright and untouchable.